You died years ago. You just haven't realized it yet. I know that sounds dramatic, maybe even cruel, but hear me out. Right now, as you watch this, you think you're alive because your heart is beating, because you're breathing, because you're moving through the world. But what if I told you that the person you think you are, with your dreams, your plans, your worries about tomorrow, is already gone? What if the life you're living is nothing more than a sophisticated form of sleepwalking? This isn't some mystical nonsense or philosophical wordplay. It's the most brutal truth about human existence, one that Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, discovered while sitting on the throne of the Roman Empire. And it's happening to you right now, in this very moment, whether you want to face it or not. Let me ask you something that might make your skin crawl. When was the last time you were truly present? Not thinking about what happened yesterday, not worrying about what might happen tomorrow, not lost in some fantasy or memory or distraction, but actually fully, completely here? Can you remember? Can you even remember what that feels like? The silence in your mind right now, that uncomfortable realization that you can't answer that question, that's the sound of recognizing your own death. Because what Marcus Aurelius understood, what he wrote about in his private journals while managing an empire and fighting wars, was that most people go through their entire lives without ever actually living. They exist in a strange twilight state, neither fully alive nor completely dead, moving through the motions of existence while their real life, their only life, slips away unnoticed. You see, there are two kinds of death. There's the biological death that everyone fears, the one that happens at the end, when your body finally stops functioning. But there's another kind of death, a more insidious one, that happens gradually, imperceptibly, while you're still walking around. It's the death of presence, the death of awareness, the death of actually experiencing your own existence. And here's the terrifying truth. For most people, this second death happens long before the first one. They spend decades as living corpses, going through the motions, following routines, reacting to life instead of living it. They die at 25 and are buried at 75, having spent 50 years in a kind of animated unconsciousness. Marcus Aurelius called this the sleep of life. But he wasn't speaking metaphorically. He was describing a literal state of unconsciousness that masquerades as living. In his meditations, he wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being." Think about that for a moment. The most powerful man in the world had to remind himself to be human. Why? Because he understood how easy it is to slip into mechanical existence, to become a ghost haunting your own life. But let's get specific about how this death happens, because it's happening to you right now in ways you probably don't even recognize. Think about yesterday. Can you remember it? Not the big events, not the obvious things, but the actual experience of being alive yesterday. The taste of your morning coffee, the feeling of air on your skin, the quality of light in the room, the sensation of your feet touching the ground? Or did you move through yesterday in a kind of haze, your attention scattered across a dozen different thoughts, worries, distractions? If you're honest, really honest, you'll admit that most of yesterday is gone. Not just forgotten, but never really experienced in the first place. You were there physically, but where were you mentally? Where was your attention? Where was your consciousness? This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." It wasn't a suggestion for better productivity or stress management. It was a desperate plea for actual life, for actual existence, for the only chance you have to be genuinely alive. Because here's what he understood that most people never realize. The past doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. It's nothing but memories and interpretations, and even those are unreliable. The future doesn't exist yet. It's nothing but projections and possibilities, most of which will never come to pass. The only thing that actually exists, the only place where life can happen, the only moment where you can be truly alive, is right now. And yet, where do you spend most of your time? Everywhere but here. Everywhere but now. Everywhere but in the only place where life is actually happening. You're living in your head, in a world of thoughts and stories and interpretations that exist nowhere but in your imagination. And while you're lost in that mental world, your real life, your actual, irreplaceable, never-to-be-repeated life is passing by unnoticed, unlived, essentially wasted. This is the death Marcus Aurelius was warning about. Not the death of your body, but the death of your presence, your awareness, your actual participation in your own existence. But it gets worse, because this isn't just about missing moments or being distracted. This unconscious living creates a kind of existential vertigo, a deep unease that most people can't quite name. You feel like something is wrong, like something is missing, like you're not quite connecting with your own life. And you are. You're not connecting because you're not there. You've vacated your own existence. Think about the last time you felt truly, vibrantly alive. Not happy, not excited, not entertained, but alive. Fully present, completely engaged, utterly here. For most people, these moments are rare accidents. A sunset that stops them in their tracks. A conversation that makes them forget everything else. A moment of crisis that snaps them into complete awareness. These aren't special, mystical experiences. They're normal human consciousness. They're what being alive actually feels like when you're not dead to your own existence. But we become so accustomed to unconsciousness that consciousness feels extraordinary. Marcus Aurelius knew this. As emperor, he could have filled his life with endless distractions, pleasures, entertainments. Instead, he practiced what he called prosoke, a Greek word meaning continuous attention to the present moment. Every morning, he would remind himself, "Today I will be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness." But he wasn't being pessimistic. He was preparing his mind to be present for whatever actually happened, rather than lost in expectations or fantasies about how things should be. This is radically different from how most people approach life. Most people live in a constant state of resistance to reality. They're always somewhere else mentally, wishing things were different, planning how to change their circumstances, comparing their current situation to some imagined alternative. But here's what Marcus Aurelius understood. You can't change reality by being absent from it. You can't improve your life by not living it. You can't solve problems by escaping into mental worlds where the problems don't exist. The only power you have, the only influence you can exert, the only life you can actually live exists here and now, in this moment, in this reality, with these circumstances exactly as they are. And this brings us to perhaps the most uncomfortable truth of all. Your resistance to the present moment is what's killing you. Your constant mental escape from what is actually happening is what's turning you into a living ghost. Every time you retreat into worry, you're choosing death over life. Every time you lose yourself in regret, you're choosing the past over presence. Every time you fantasize about some future scenario, you're choosing imagination over reality. And slowly, incrementally, these choices accumulate into a life that's more dead than alive. Marcus Aurelius saw this happening all around him. He was surrounded by people who had everything: wealth, power, status, pleasure, but who were essentially sleepwalking through their existence. In his meditations, he wrote how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself. But this wasn't about ignoring other people. It was about recognizing that consciousness is not a social activity. Awareness is not something you can do collectively. Presence is not something you can achieve by watching others or comparing yourself to others or getting lost in the drama of other people's lives. Life, real life, is radically personal. It's happening inside your own experience, in your own consciousness, in your own present moment. And no amount of external activity, no amount of social engagement, no amount of busyness or productivity or achievement can substitute for actually being present in your own existence. This is why social media is so psychologically destructive, though Marcus Aurelius couldn't have imagined such technology. It trains you to live outside yourself, to constantly compare your internal experience to other people's external presentations, to measure your life against curated versions of other people's lives. It turns your attention outward when the only place life can actually happen is inward, in your own immediate experience. But the problem isn't technology. Technology just amplifies what Marcus Aurelius already saw in ancient Rome: the human tendency to avoid presence, to escape from the sometimes uncomfortable reality of being alive, of being here, of being now. And this avoidance has consequences that go far deeper than just missing moments or feeling distracted. When you're not present, you can't learn from experience. When you're not here, you can't make genuine choices. When you're not now, you can't grow, change, or adapt. You become stuck in patterns, repeating the same mistakes, living the same limited life over and over again, because you're never actually here to see what's really happening or to make different choices. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But you can't have power over your mind if you're not present with your mind. You can't direct your thoughts if you're not aware of your thoughts. You can't choose your responses if you're not conscious of what you're responding to. Presence is not just about feeling good or being peaceful or reducing stress. Presence is the foundation of human agency. It's what makes choice possible. It's what makes growth possible. It's what makes life possible. Without presence, you're essentially a biological robot, running programs that were installed by your past experiences, your conditioning, your unconscious habits. You're not living. You're being lived by forces you're not even aware of. And this is where Marcus Aurelius's insight becomes truly profound. He realized that most human suffering doesn't come from external circumstances. It comes from unconsciousness, from not being present with what's actually happening. When you're fully present, you can respond to difficult situations skillfully. When you're unconscious, you react automatically, usually making things worse. When you're here, you can see opportunities and possibilities. When you're somewhere else mentally, you miss them entirely. The emperor who had absolute power over the external world discovered that real power, the only power that actually matters, is the power to be present with your own experience, to be conscious in your own life, to be awake in your own existence. But here's what makes this particularly challenging in our current moment. The modern world is specifically designed to prevent presence. Everything in our culture, from advertising to entertainment to social media to the structure of work itself, is designed to capture your attention and direct it away from the present moment. You're being systematically trained to be unconscious, to live in your head, to be anywhere but here. And this isn't accidental. Unconscious people are better consumers, more predictable voters, more manageable employees. Conscious people are dangerous because they think for themselves, make independent choices, can't be easily manipulated. So in a very real sense, learning to be present is a radical act. Choosing to be alive is a form of rebellion against a culture that profits from your unconsciousness. Marcus Aurelius understood this dynamic, though he experienced it in different forms. He was constantly pressured by advisors, courtiers, and officials who wanted his attention, who wanted to pull him into their dramas and schemes and problems. He had to consciously choose, moment by moment, whether to be present with his own experience or to be scattered across a dozen different concerns. And here's what he discovered. The quality of your life is determined entirely by the quality of your attention. When your attention is fragmented, your life feels fragmented. When your attention is present, your life feels whole. This isn't mystical or complicated. It's simple psychology. Your experience of life is your experience of whatever you're paying attention to. If you're paying attention to worries, you experience worry. If you're paying attention to fantasies, you experience unreality. If you're paying attention to the present moment, you experience life. But paying attention to the present moment isn't always pleasant. Sometimes the present moment contains pain, difficulty, boredom, uncertainty. And this is why most people avoid presence. They've learned that mental escape feels better than being here when here is uncomfortable. Marcus Aurelius called this the fundamental choice of human existence. Do you choose comfort or do you choose consciousness? Do you choose pleasant illusions or difficult truths? Do you choose mental escape or actual life? And he was clear about the consequences of this choice. Those who choose comfort, who choose illusion, who choose escape, gradually become less alive, less conscious, less human. They don't die all at once. They die incrementally, losing pieces of themselves every time they choose unconsciousness over awareness. But those who choose consciousness, who choose to be present even when presence is difficult, gradually become more alive, more aware, more fully human. Not because their circumstances are better, but because they're actually there to experience their circumstances, whatever they may be. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "Death smiles at us all, but all a man can do is smile back." He wasn't talking about biological death. He was talking about the daily choice between consciousness and unconsciousness, between presence and escape, between life and the living death of inattention. Every moment, life offers you the same choice it offered Marcus Aurelius. Will you be here for this, or will you be somewhere else? Will you be present with what's actually happening, or will you retreat into mental worlds where you have more control but less reality? And here's the thing that makes this choice urgent. You don't have unlimited opportunities to make it. Your life is happening now, not later. Your moments of presence are not rehearsals for some future time when you'll really start living. This is it. This is your life. These are your moments. This is your chance to be alive. Marcus Aurelius knew this with particular intensity because he lived with the constant awareness of death. As emperor, he saw how quickly life could change, how suddenly everything could end. He watched friends die, witnessed the collapse of plans and dreams, experienced the fragility of everything people usually take for granted. But instead of making him morbid or depressed, this awareness of death made him intensely present. He wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." This wasn't cynicism, it was clarity. The clarity that comes from recognizing how brief and precious consciousness really is. When you truly understand that your time is limited, that your opportunities for presence are finite, that your chances to be genuinely alive are not guaranteed, you stop taking consciousness for granted. You stop assuming that you can always choose to be present later, that you can postpone awareness until some more convenient time. You realize that the choice to be alive has to be made now, in this moment, with these circumstances exactly as they are. Not when things get better, not when you've solved all your problems, not when you've achieved your goals, but now. And this is where Marcus Aurelius's teaching becomes practical rather than just philosophical. Being present isn't something you do in addition to your regular life. It's how you live your regular life. It's how you experience whatever is already happening. You don't need to change your circumstances to be more present. You need to be more present with your circumstances. You don't need to wait for better moments to start living. You need to start living in the moments you already have. This might sound simple, but it's actually the most difficult thing a human being can do. Your mind has been trained to be anywhere but here. Your attention has been conditioned to fragment and scatter. Your consciousness has been programmed to avoid the present moment whenever it becomes challenging or boring or uncertain. So learning to be present requires what Marcus Aurelius called discipline. Not external discipline, but the internal discipline of repeatedly choosing consciousness over unconsciousness, presence over escape, reality over fantasy. Every time you notice your mind has wandered into worry or regret or fantasy, you have an opportunity to return to presence. Every time you catch yourself living in your head rather than in your actual experience, you can choose to come back to now. This isn't about achieving some perfect state of constant awareness. It's about recognizing unconsciousness when it happens and choosing to return to consciousness. It's about dying to mental worlds and being reborn into reality over and over again, moment by moment. Marcus Aurelius practiced this discipline for decades, while managing an empire, fighting wars, dealing with political crises, facing personal tragedies. He didn't wait for perfect conditions to start living consciously. He chose consciousness in the middle of chaos, presence in the middle of pressure, life in the middle of difficulty. And this brings us to the final and most important insight from Marcus Aurelius. You are already dead if you think you need different circumstances to be alive. You are already dead if you believe you can postpone consciousness until some future moment when things are better. Life is not a dress rehearsal. Consciousness is not something you can save for later. Presence is not a luxury you can afford once you've handled all your responsibilities and solved all your problems. The person you are now, in these circumstances, with these challenges, in this moment, is the only person who can choose to be alive. Not the person you might become, not the person you wish you were, not the person you think you should be, but you, right now, exactly as you are. And if you can't choose consciousness here, if you can't choose presence now, if you can't choose life in this moment, then when will you? When will the circumstances be perfect enough? When will you finally deserve to be alive? The answer Marcus Aurelius discovered is both liberating and terrifying. You don't deserve to be alive, and you don't need to deserve it. Life is not a reward for good behavior or achievement or moral perfection. Life is what's already happening right now, whether you're present for it or not. You can spend your entire existence waiting for permission to be conscious, waiting for the right moment to start living, waiting for circumstances to align so that presence feels comfortable and easy. But while you're waiting, life is happening. While you're preparing to be alive, you're dying. Or you can make the choice Marcus Aurelius made, to be present with what is, to be conscious in this moment, to be alive right now, regardless of circumstances, regardless of problems, regardless of whether you feel ready or worthy or prepared. This is not positive thinking or self-help optimism. This is the most practical and urgent choice you can make. Because in the end, consciousness is all you have. Presence is your only real possession. This moment is your only actual opportunity. Everything else, your plans, your memories, your worries, your dreams, exists only in your imagination. But this moment, this experience, this opportunity to be conscious, this is real. This is your life. This is your chance to be alive. Marcus Aurelius spent his final years writing notes to himself, reminders to stay present, instructions for choosing consciousness. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one, but I would change that slightly. Waste no more time arguing what a living person should be. Be one. Waste no more time thinking about when you'll start being present. Be present. Waste no more time planning to be conscious. Be conscious. The choice to be alive is available to you right now, in this moment, as you hear these words. Not as a future possibility, not as something to work toward, but as an immediate option, an instant transformation, a decision you can make without changing anything except the quality of your attention. You have been dead to your own existence for long enough. You have been absent from your own life for long enough. You have been unconscious in your own consciousness for long enough. The Emperor of Rome, the most powerful man in the ancient world, discovered that real power is the power to be present. Real wealth is the wealth of consciousness. Real life is the life you're living right now, if you choose to be there for it. So I ask you again, will you continue to be dead to your own existence, or will you choose to be alive? Will you remain unconscious in your own life, or will you wake up to the only moment you actually have? The choice is yours. It has always been yours. And Marcus Aurelius would remind you, it can only be made now, because now is all there is. Now is all there has ever been. And now is where life is waiting for you to finally, fully, consciously arrive.